St. Louis, whatever the hell.
Tony Bruno.
Yes.
We have
Hockey action. Yo.
hockey action, yo.
How do we have hockey action? It's JR's.
Right, JR's on the
Oh,
phone.
that hockey action. Wait, let me play this for him as we bring him in. He wasn't singing Gloria last year when the St. Louis Blues were winning a championship. Old friend of the show, guy we've known for a long, long time, and glad that we can get him back on here. We've seen him so many times, whether it's Tahoe, whether it's here in Philly at Moonshine, where we were breaking bread with him the last time he was in town. All over the place. Jeremy Roenick, JR, thanks for popping on, brother. Appreciate it.
Well, what's going on, Tony? And yes, I was singing Gloria last year, and I had to because NBC made me. So I'm not going to do it again.
Oh, come on, you had to be happy for the Blues fans. I mean, they had never won a cup.
I was very happy. I will tell you this, and playing in Chicago or St. Louis was one of our huge rivals. You know, to never win a cup, knowing how great their fans are. And I will tell you this, going around the arena and being outside with the fans when they were partying and getting ready for the games, you know, it's easy for fans to be really mean and say a lot of bad things, with their arch rival ex-teammates. I didn't have one bad thing said to me by one fan. They were the most gracious, one of the most classy group of fans that I've ever been around, and they deserve a championship. It was great.
And here in Philly, as you know, the story about Gloria starting at the local bar from the Mummers guys.
That's right.
And then the Blues players were here in town, and you obviously played here and know how the Philly fans are and the reputation. But the Philly fans, we were there during the Stanley Cup run. All these St. Louis fans were coming from all over the country, from St. Louis, anywhere in the area. They were hanging out at this bar, and all the Flyer fans were embracing them because they wanted to see them win too. So fans who recognize long-suffering fan bases, no matter how rough the fans may be and how die-hard they are, you got to feel good. Like, I felt good when the Red Sox finally won a World Series, believe it or not. And so when I see a team that goes forever, like St. Louis, you know, part of the expansion of the Flyers era, win a Stanley Cup, and Craig Berube, a great guy who was here for a long time, you got to feel good for them.
Yeah, you know what? It was, and speaking of, you know, seeing St. Louis win and then seeing Kansas City win and Andy Reid winning a Super Bowl was, I don't know about you, but there's another great Philly coach that has been just shut out that I think a lot of people are happy that all of his hard work finally paid off.
Now, JR, you know, obviously the big story is that you released it on your Twitter feed, on your Instagram, when you said, what was the term you had? You had a 2-word thing when you posted your video the other day.
What a joke.
What a joke. 3 words. What a joke. And then you gave a little comment on there, and now people are talking. I know you talked to TMZ yesterday, and there's a lot of people who are on both sides of this issue. You know, you can't go on a podcast anymore and say anything. Here's the thing. I'll give you my take on it. Not because I know you and like you and understand how great you are with people and how long you've been a great player, a great broadcaster, and the whole thing that happened. You go on a podcast, and you're talking about people that you know. It's not like you're in a bar, and you meet a woman, and your wife's with you, and then you try to hit on the other woman and try to get her to go home with you. A lot of people do that. Some people go out looking for it. But you work with this Catherine Tappan. You work with all the people around NBC on the hockey coverage for years, and then you go on a podcast spitting chiclets and are asked questions about it, and then you start talking about it, and then the best part of it, and I saw the story, they didn't even say anything for how long after you were on that podcast?
Nobody was saying anything. See, this is the problem, Tony. People don't know the story. They didn't listen to the podcast. They didn't hear what I said, how I said it, and kind of the tone and the reference that I said it in. Now, first of all, you're right. It was, you know, Catherine Tappan is one of mine and my wife's best friends. Okay, we've traveled together, and you know, in the summer, we are very good friends, and all 3 of us joke about what it looks like in a situation. Listen, if I walk in the room with 2 beautiful women, people are going to ask questions. They're going to wonder what's going on. It's only natural. They're going to wonder what's going on. So, listen, I told a story about what it was like for us when we were on vacation. And by the way, my wife was there. Like, and I didn't harass anybody. I didn't ask anybody for anything. I didn't make any advances on anyone. There was no physical contact. It was all on a racy podcast, obviously, and you get very comfortable telling stories, like when you're in the locker room with the guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is a very storytelling laden podcast. And I will tell you this: Catherine, myself, and Tracy are very close, and we feel comfortable in those kind of conversations. We laugh, we joke. You know, even Catherine at one time has joked many times about it. So my problem is the people that are yelling and screaming don't know the story. They don't know the story behind the story. They didn't listen to the podcast. And granted, there's no question. I might have gone a little bit too far and put Catherine and Tracy, my wife, in an uncomfortable scenario. But at the time, I mean, I didn't think there was anything wrong, because this is something that we do quite often, to tell you the truth. So that being said, nothing on social media. About 2 or 3 days afterwards, Spit and Chicklets didn't have any positive comments about the podcast. Nothing on my social media about something inappropriate. The one person that had a problem with it was Sam Flood, my boss at NBC, and he didn't need to chastise me by throwing it out to public, by having a press release. Catherine Tappan did not want a press release. She didn't want her name thrown out there into the public with something like this. And, Sam did it anyway. He threw it out there anyway. He disrespected Catherine's wishes, and that's really unfortunate. And by the way, there are a lot of people out there. There are a lot of women out there who have really been affected by sexual harassment or any sort of sexual misconduct, that are scarred, and can't minimize that. And unfortunately, I was the sacrificial lamb for NBC for a lot of the bad people, or the people that have done bad things that have rolled through NBC, that has been kind of swept under the rug, gotten away with. And to tell you the truth, some people that are still there that have massively bad things that they have done in the past, and I am not. So to me, in my opinion, this is a HR PR stunt that they needed, and I'm the sacrificial lamb for it. I've apologized. This is one thing also, Tony. I know I'm talking a lot, but I read all the social media, and a lot of social media, they're saying, well, you didn't even apologize. You didn't apologize. Let me tell you something. Get your facts straight. Right away, but after I got suspended, I apologized to Catherine Tappan, to her family, to Anson Carter, to Patrick Sharp, to NBC, and then I did it publicly in early January on my Twitter and on my Facebook. I did a public apology, and on my Instagram. So, people start yelling and screaming and apologize. I did everything right by the book after I got suspended, and will continue to. But it just frustrates me to no end that NBC made me the sacrificial lamb and get the PR that they desperately needed. But I think you will see some things come out in the next couple months that that I don't think is going to look very good on some of the things that they decide that is okay to accept, and some things that they don't feel is okay to accept. It's really unfortunate, because I really enjoyed being on television and having that platform at NBC to share my love and passion for the game, and try to be entertaining and try to be honest. I'm telling you, nobody has been as blatantly honest and gone after teams or gone after players harder than I have, because they deserved it and not afraid of the backlash. And I think the fans deserve that.
Absolutely. I mean, I know so many fans who say that it's because of you that they have truly felt like they enjoy watching hockey on TV. Because I've never really appreciated hockey until I went to see it in person. But listening to you, I was able to bring that joy of what I felt like.
Oh, you're so sweet.
I'm serious. And here's another thing.
By the way, you can hit on her. It's okay with me now, Jeremy. Well, we've hung out in Tahoe together. You, your wife Robin, and I in Tahoe.
By the way, Tony, they banned me from Tahoe too.
No way!
NBC,
Unbelievable.
Oh yeah, I've been going there 26 years. Only 3 players have gone more than me: Jim McMahon, Jack Wagner, and Joe Theismann. Those are the only 2 guys that have been there longer than me. And John Miller from NBC is banning me from Tahoe now because of
Wow.
Well, and Jeremy, here's the irony of the situation.
Isn't that a joke?
It's an absolute joke. It's an embarrassment for NBC and Comcast.
And here's the irony of the situation, Jeremy, is that if Tony and I, if we had been in that same situation and Tony had been the one making those comments, because I am bisexual and openly so, we would have gotten a pass. Because then, because then it would have been, if anybody had tried to criticize Tony for, bringing it up or making a situation, if they didn't understand that it was a freaking joke in the first place, then they would have said, oh, they're criticizing Robin being bisexual. And it's
wait a minute, you're bisexual, Robin? Wait a minute. This is breaking news.
But I mean, this selective morality is just insane. The PC culture is insane. And I did not realize that your boss actually broke the news or made it a big deal without getting permission from Catherine to make it public.
How about this? He suspended me on the 23rd of December, right before Christmas. Okay, 23rd of December. And then 2 hours after he suspended me, all of a sudden I start seeing all the press releases that, Jeremy Roenick's been suspended. And I'm like, how did this get out? Because no, we did not know that they were going to make it public, that they were going to do a press release, right? We didn't know. Wow. He didn't even have the courtesy to tell me that they were going to do a press release. So I got sideswiped. And I didn't even get to call my lawyers to have them prepared for it. Catherine didn't want it to be out there. And by the way, other people in NBC that have done things like a lot worse than what I did, that got chastised by NBC or suspended, it went quiet. It went underneath. They didn't make press releases. They protected them. They didn't make it public. They just said, we're just going to suspend you for a couple weeks without pay, and you come back in a couple weeks. There was no public or media release they protected them. They didn't protect me. And I'll tell you, what's even crazier? This really drove me crazy. So the reason that my boss, Sam Flood, told me that they're not bringing me back, I said, well, did you ask Catherine? She wants me back. Did you ask Anson Carter? He wants me back. Patrick Sharp? He wants me back. And by the way, how about the millions of Twitter people that are asking for me to come back, that want me to come back? You're seeing it on your, on your feeds. Sam Flood says to me, they don't matter. They don't matter. So they don't matter when you're trying to protect Catherine Tappan. He said that it's all the people that work in the studio. I can't bring you back into the studio because of the people that work in the studio. I'm like, are you kidding me? You can't bring me back to put me on television for everybody that wants me back because of the people that work in the studio. Now, let me tell you something. There are about 10, 15, 20 people at NBC that work in there that love me and emailed me and text me apologizing that this is happening. Hope you come back soon. Can't wait till you come back. So, listen, I think he wanted me out. I was about ready to sign a new contract after this year. This is my last year. I think this is, like I said, good PR. I'm their sacrificial lamb. I wasn't going to go back there. They didn't want to sign me back again next year. I think it was just convenient for them because that's just a horse shit reason not to bring me back, to tell you the truth.
No, I totally agree with you, Jaron. The bottom line is this.
I feel bad.
No, you're right, but I got all these comments on Twitter. Hey, Tony, he worked for a company, and you can't go on and rip. You weren't ripping the company when you were having fun as an employee of a company. You understand that. I understand it. I was on radio for 50 years, with no scripts and saying things a lot of times. And when you're having fun, and now in the world of podcasts, as you pointed out, there are things being said on podcast every single day. A big name podcast. Spittin' Chicklets is a big time podcast. It's not some little guy in a basement. It's huge. It's one of the top 10 podcasts in sports, and it's a hockey podcast.
Hey, listen to this hypocrisy. So Sam Flood says to me all the time, he hates Spitting Chicklets. Can't stand it. He cannot stand Paul Bissonnette and Ryan Whitney. Can't stand them. You should hear the names that he calls them, because he can't stand the vulgarity sometimes of their podcast or what they say. And he calls it a trash podcast. So whatever, he's named it. He's called it a bunch of things, right? But all of a sudden, then you turn on NBC and you have a new Amsterdam vodka commercial, and who are the two guys on it? My buddies, Bissonnette and Whitney. So the guys that he's yelling and screaming at, saying that are trash and vulgar and no good and bad guy and bad guys, he has them all over NBC doing commercials. Oh, of course, because if you want money, if it's for the money, we'll do it. It's the hypocrisy is it's unbelievable.
We have a guy in here, Luigi, who works with us. You met him. He actually delivered. I
delivered crutches to his son many, many moons ago
when he was in
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
He was in Philadelphia. He was living out in Huntington Valley. Yeah.
And we allow him in the studio, and he's a bad guy, but we allow him in here.
Every now and again, I say something funny. There's the hypocrisy, Jeremy. There it is, right there.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, listen, let me give you one more thing that really bugged me. So I told you I got suspended on December 23rd. That same night, that I got suspended for telling a true story, and obviously, I'm sorry that I got Catherine, and my wife, brought into this, but at the time they didn't have a problem with it. But I got suspended on the 23rd. So that night, Catherine Tappan, Patrick Sharp, and Anson Carter are on the set for a game in Boston. Okay, the first segment, Tony, that they do as the show opens is they celebrate. Catherine Tappan says on air, "We're celebrating the 40th anniversary of Mike Milbury going up into the stands in Madison Square Garden and beating the guy with his own shoe."
Wow.
Beating a guy.
That was great.
Oh,
that was
God.
fun, though. I mean, you remember those days, and I remember it. We laugh about it.
No question. Tony, of course it's fun. But if we're going to be really nitpicky about what we want on our air, how about promoting workplace violence? Workplace violence. Mike Milbury beating a guy in the stands with his own shoe. But I can't tell a real true story?
On a podcast that's not on national television that people choose to listen to. If you're watching a hockey game, you turn it on the pregame show, people say stuff. Like at TNT, Charles and Shaq say stuff that's provocative. But, that's over the air. On podcast, Shaq has a podcast. Pretty much everybody has a podcast now. And when you do a podcast, you're a little more loosey-goosey. It's not like you're calling your boss Hitler. You're having fun. That's the part I don't get. And you're right about the hypocrisy. Because I know a lot of people at NBC that are absolutely should not even be allowed to get as a tour in the studio, but still have national shows. That's the problem that I have with it.
It's truly unbelievable. But like I said, I'm sorry it happened. I'm sorry that it's gotten to the point that it has. It didn't need to get to be this way. I already told you why I think it happened. I thank all the fans for allowing me into their homes to let me, just share my love for the game, and I'm sure I'm going to do it again. It's been difficult. I feel bad. I really feel bad for Catherine. I've apologized to her many times, and she got dragged into this, and she had to make a statement.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because the statement said that it made her feel uncomfortable. And to a layperson who doesn't know the whole story, they're like, see, it made her feel uncomfortable. But from
I will tell you, I will tell you this. I can't speak for Catherine right now, and I'm not going to. It's too early. There is something 100% that I know for sure behind the statement. I talked to her an hour before the statement, and she was just rattled. She was rattled, and she didn't want to do it, but there's something behind it, and she's one of the best ladies on the planet. She's one of the best women in sports. She's so professional, and this is what I said on the podcast too. I think she's one of the most prepared, and she does her job as well as any woman on television. And it's just too bad that she's in it. Obviously, I'm going to take responsibility for that. I hope that people start leaving her alone, because she is the most professional and one of the best people in the job, and a very, very good friend of mine. And my wife and I love her to death, and she deserves to be left alone and let her do the great job that she does every single night on NBC. She is the greatest.
Well, Jerry, I said it yesterday because of a situation that Tony had a couple, many years ago, which I call Twittergate, when he said something.
I never said anything on the air.
No,
I did
I
a stupid tweet, and I got punished for it severely.
The corporate lawyers got involved, and they gave an edict to Tony what he was allowed to say and where he was not allowed to go on. He wasn't allowed to defend himself. He wasn't allowed to say anything. And so I said yesterday, because we knew that you guys were such great friends, that I said, I bet you anything that she didn't have a lot of choice in the quote-unquote statement that was put out. That was my opinion, but... if you can't reply to that, that's fine. But
you're a very smart woman. You're a very smart woman.
Why, thank you.
Because that's what some of the detractors who are still on Twitter saying, but she never actually had his back. I mean, she never said anything. She said that she was not happy with it or whatever.
Hey, listen. Her statement didn't help me at all. Let's be serious.
Right.
It did not help. It did not help me at all. But she has my back all the time and always has, and I will have her back all the time. I just want people to leave her alone. And she's, like I said, she's one of the most professional women in sports. And she deserves to be treated with respect. And, I took it too far. I put her in this situation, and, by telling the story, by being comfortable, in that relationship. And, I got to be better. There's no question. I got to be smarter about, people's surroundings and feelings, and, whether it is the Me Too or I think everybody does. But still, there's a time and place for everything. And when you're on a racy podcast and podcasts like Spit and Chicklets, and you're talking about people that you're very comfortable with, it's easy to get carried away, and that's just what happened. But I do say, please, anybody that listens to this, know your facts first.
Yeah.
Go listen to the podcast, please. No, I didn't touch anyone. I didn't harass anyone. Didn't ask anyone for anything. Didn't wasn't explicit in any way. It was just and people want to throw around misogynist. They throw around Harvey Weinstein. I mean, listen. There is such a huge monumental gap between actual sexual predators, actual sexual harassment, and what I did by just telling a funny story on a podcast. So get your facts straight before you start yelling at people or screaming and yelling and throwing daggers on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, because you're just making a fool of yourself, not of me.
Last thing I got to ask is about blacklisting, because when somebody, for example, we talked about this yesterday. Jim Carrey just did an interview with a young reporter about the movie that's out this weekend. Sonic, and then at the end she said, what was something that you want to do? And he said, what was the question now? Wait a minute, turn Luigi's mic on.
She said, Jim, you've done so many things. What's left on the bucket list for you to do? And he looked her right in the face and said, just you.
And so that's a joke,
but he
right?
said it. But he had the Jim Carrey mocking little face on, he was just being Jim Carrey. He was being completely silly. She laughed it off the entire time. She didn't tweet anything about it. She didn't say anything about it.
Of course not.
She didn't take offense to it, kind of a thing. But others did.
Well, you know why?
Others did.
And you know this, JR, better than anybody, because a lot of people don't like Jim Carrey because of his politics, and so they're going to say he should be canceled. And then the people who like him saying, oh, there's no big deal. He just said, oh, I want to do you. So that's the world we live in now. If you don't like somebody or you don't like their politics, that determines on whether or not you should be punished or given a pass. That's how it's working right now. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
Do you want to hear my kind of our world is so messed up right now. Is so divided, and the animosity, and it's so crazy. But I think Twitter and I think Twitter is the main reason why everybody and why this hatred is going around. You know, there are always idiots in the world, Tony. There are always idiots. There are always people that were mad. There are always people that were jealous. We just really didn't know who they were. They were all around us, right? All of a sudden, boom, bring Twitter on board, and all of a sudden now you have a faceless platform where you can just write anything and not be accountable for it and throw mean insults at people. And guess what? The other people who like to throw mean insults also, they see that other people like it, that other people are doing it. So it's a platform for the idiots to meet that only want to do is yell and scream and make people feel terrible and yell mean insults and try to bring people down. Now they all met each other.
I'm sorry.
Now they all have a platform.
And any platform that allows you to do this being nameless and faceless is nothing more than a platform for cowards. That's all it really is. That's all it really is.
It's true. But
Because
that's what I'm saying.
you should see these people. You know people that are on Facebook and are on Twitter. And you go to their Twitter page, and it's just some random name with some random photo. You go on Facebook, and it's their professional life, right? But they don't cross those two worlds, right? They're allowed to be whoever they want to be on Twitter, but you can't – like, if your mother knew you had a Twitter page and she saw it was on there, my God.
I know, right? It's really too bad. I mean, I just wish there was more respect for people. There was more love for people, doing nice things for people. Because, listen, Twitter is there also with, for news and saying some good things, but also, I don't know if I can swear on
yes,
this
you
or
can.
not.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. Well, Twitter's where assholes meet assholes, and try to make everybody feel bad. And unfortunately, we don't need that in our world. And there's too much hatred in this world, and we got to get back to respecting and loving each other more than just trying to bring people down.
That was way too mild. I was expecting some real serious shit there.
Well, hold on a second, Jeremy. This is
assholes and assholes. I mean, we're surrounded by assholes.
You'll appreciate this. One of the Twitch followers here, Captain Russell Haas, says there needs to be a Twitter meeting place where you can wear your tweet on a shirt and see who has the balls to come up and be rude to your face.
I love it. Listen, hey, listen. Then the fights break out. Then it gets even worse. It's too bad. It really is.
It
but
is.
I really appreciate you guys letting me come on and just
no problem,
a little
man.
bit.
Anytime. Last thing I want to ask you, because I talked about blacklisting, because people. Do you feel that like nobody's going to hire you now in the world of hockey? We saw what happened up at Hockey Night in Canada with Don Cherry, banished from the airwaves. Do you think that you're a marked man like Don Cherry? Do you think that you'll get another opportunity working for a network or an NHL team?
No, not at all. Actually, I've already been contacted by a couple entities of possibly doing some work. So, no, I think most people, that have some sort of common sense. Most people that have some sort of common sense, which, by the way, has kind of left the world also. Common sense is a very rare thing. But they know that what I said wasn't awful. I think, they know who I am, and, whether I start my own show, my own platform, I know there's a lot of platforms out there. I've always been honest. I've always been forthright, and I've been entertaining. So, no, I will be back, and I will be back better than ever and bigger than ever, and be able to be me and not be muzzled like I was in NBC. And for might take a little while, but I have things in the works right now that I'm working on right now that when they get going should be a lot of fun. But no, I do not think I'll be blackballed whatsoever. I'll be blackballed by probably a bunch of women's groups and all that. And, some of the lefty liberals out in California that aren't going to like me, but they were my audience anyway.
JR, ladies, I know one thing he's working on. TPC at Scottsdale and Talking Stick and all the other great tracks out there in the desert.
I'm actually at Fire Rock right now, getting ready to go out. So,
how did you do yesterday at TPC Scottsdale? We were talking about it off the air about the 16th hole there, which is the greatest hole in all of golf.
It is. especially during that tournament. There's no better hole than that. I played well. I shot 74, had a good round. I have a lot of time to practice right now, so that's a good thing.
Well, let us know when you're back in Philly.
I love Philly, but I love the fans of Philly. Every time I see a Philly fan, I give them a hug. Seems like I see them everywhere I go. So I love you guys all. Thank you.
Thank you, JR. JR, there he is, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate you coming on, man.
See you, pal. Thanks, Tony.
See you soon, I hope. There he is, Jeremy Roenick. All the questions asked, all the questions answered, all the answers questioned, which is what people do in this world, Luigi. And it's an absolute outrage.
I didn't get a chance to give him any love for NHL '97, man.